Welcome. Today is January 18th, 2015. Welcome to the Stepping Stones Project. Today we're preaching on Ruth chapter 3, the proposal. So as we talk about this story, we've talked about this woman, Ruth, and this is one painting of her. We're going to be looking at a lot of paintings today during today's sermon. And so I'd encourage you to, if you're watching this video after the fact, to perhaps pause it, look at some of those, and think through some of these. So in the story, Ruth has been gleaning, which is to say, picking up the remnants out in Boaz's field, and he has taken care of her. Her mother-in-law, Naomi, has advice for her about this situation, and we're going to hear what Naomi says when we jump into our text here. I went ahead and threw another painting here. This is one imagery of the meeting, perhaps, where Boaz says, "Who is this woman? Whose servant is she?" This is, of course, when she first catches his eye. Let's jump into the text. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you?" Let me just pause there. So what is it that she's seeking here? Well, to be candid, it's marriage. This is the relationship that produces a stability in the biblical times. And for many of us, it produces stability, perhaps in our times as well. It's one of them. It's been described as the foundation of society. I think it's certainly a very, very important piece of it. There is, and I got this during the children's sermon, but I'll mention it here. There is a biblical model for remaining single and considering yourself, if you will, married to God. And so the Apostle Paul speaks about that, and he certainly addresses that. But he's very candid. It's really interesting. The Bible, I kind of pictured being sort of stodgy and sort of not addressing some of the issues. But when people talk about sexual temptation, Paul addresses that, and he says, as he's thinking through this, he describes that feeling as a burning, and he says it's good for those of you that are single if you can go ahead and you can handle that lifestyle. On the other hand, if you're unable to handle the temptation that's there, it's better to marry than to burn. And burn here does nothing to do with being in hell. Burn has to do with burning with sexual temptation. And so it's an interesting statement that Paul makes with that. So that there's a lot of biblical approaches there. People really realize that the Bible speaks to these things and understand God understands us in our humanity. So verse 2, Naomi speaking, she says, "Not Boaz our relative, with whose young women you were? See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor." What does it mean to winnow? He's winnowing barley. What the heck is that? Put your hands over the keyboard for me and tell me, what's winnowing barley? How does that work? It's trying to separate something from something. I'm trying to separate out the good part that you want to keep, which is the seed. Then take out the seed and separate the grain from the chaff, or seed from the chaff. Yeah. And so what ends up happening is you break it up. And so a lot of times, I didn't put a picture up here, but on the threshing floor, you'd go through, and typically you would tread with oxen. You'd have oxen walk across it and break it up. And then you take the big pitchforks when there's a wind blowing across and throw it up into the air. And by doing that, the wind will blow away the light outer part, which is called the chaff, blow it away, and the heavier grain falls to the ground, and you can then collect it and keep doing that over and over again. And eventually you get something that's basically just the grain. You all follow? So he's winnowing barley. He's separating barley. And this is the end of harvest. So at this point, we've gotten all the stuff out of the field. It's dried, and now we're ready to get down to just the stuff we can sell or eat or store. There's winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. So she gives her daughter-in-law some directions. "Wash, therefore, and anoint yourself, put on your cloak, and go down to the threshing floor." Okay, so make yourself look pretty and go down, but do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. But when he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do. It's kind of pausing here for a second. Let me go ahead and read through, and then we're going to get into the paintings here in a second, and I'll comment on that. She replied, "And all that you say I will do." So she went down to the threshing floor and did just as her mother-in-law had commanded her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. Then she came softly and uncovered his feet and lay down. At midnight the man was startled and turned over, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. And he said, Who are you? And she answered, I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer. I'm going to pause the story right there, and I want to go through. And if you have a notebook or something, I'm going to throw up some images, and I want you to sort of put some ideas up here. I'm going to run through them a couple times of which one of the following paintings matches your vision, if any, or most matches your vision of what you just kind of put in your mind's eye. So this is A, and here we have one. This is by creationartist.com, or at least the ones that posted up there. And they had go through, and some of these are famous paintings by masters, and some of these are just informal sketches by people. But these ones I found on the internet that appealed to me for going through and telling a story. So here we see a threshing floor, and we see Ruth then reaching out, kind of reaching up to his hip there. Here we see an image of the two of them after he's woken, and the two of them are certainly close by. Third one, we see Ruth here in a red dress. She's sitting up near his hip and obviously a lot closer to him. Here we see one where clearly they've awoken and she's a lot closer to him. This is D. E, this is more of a drawing, and so we see him kind of up and he's startled and she's kneeling at his feet. F, we see an older Boaz. Notice the gray in his beard. Notice the physical separation where she's laying further away from him, and his robe is up into his ankles. And the last one is just a simple drawing with the robe curled up the side there, and they haven't made any attempt to really show the pile of grain at the top and any kind of real detail and so forth. So run through these one more time. So there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Can y'all pick one? Why don't you go and type it in there for me? What do you like? What's some of the different ideas here? And can you see that there are different parts of the story that are being brought out in these imagery? As to how they portray the words. Okay, so Will and G are the first ones that they voted for me. If the rest of you could put your hands on the keyboard, please, and go ahead and type one of them in, or if you need to see them again, let me know. Okay, so Kim went with E. Okay, went with that. Sheree says she has 4 different ones. Could you please pick one for the purposes of the recording? I would greatly appreciate it. Eileen, any of those? Eileen went with E. Okay, so she's on that one. Okay. This is one Will and G picked, B. Okay, so I got B's and E's. Okay. I think Ginger probably did B as well. Okay. Eileen says E or B. Okay. So as you listen to the recording, give everybody a second as they're trying to work through. I'm going to cycle through one last time. Okay. Or maybe one of the others. Okay. Amy, I don't know if I got your vote in there or not. You can say none of the above if you absolutely hate them all. Amy went with A. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to back up to here. So let's talk about these paintings just a little bit, and paintings and drawings and sketches and so forth. Yep. Okay. So from some of these, so it's interesting, okay? And Sheree says when she first said it, she would go with G. Okay? So it's interesting you picked that, Sheree. I did not tell you this. G is actually my favorite. We'll talk about why as we go through. The artistic, I mean, the quality is not necessarily there, but there's some parts of this that I really like to go through. All right, so here's a key question for you on something like this one, D or C. As you read Ruth chapter 3, was there an inappropriate sexual relations that happened there on the threshing floor that night? And you might say, oh my gosh, who would say that? This is the Bible. Well, there's a whole trend here that says absolutely no question about it, they had sex. Okay, so let's talk through this just a little bit. This whole idea of Ruth, your maidservant, spread your wings over your servant. So they would interpret that in sort of an innuendo towards having relations. And then when you come up with this idea of uncovering your feet, right? Uncovering feet. Well, that's kind of odd. Well, I mentioned when I was preaching on Isaiah that, you might remember there's an angel, and an angel is flying, right? Isaiah sees this angel, and he's different pairs of wings. With one pair of wings, he flies. With one pair, he covers his face, and one pair, he covers his feet. You remember that? And I told you that there's a euphemism inside of the Hebrew language where feet, covering one's feet, has to do with, it's a euphemism, a way of saying your man's private area. Okay? So those people would argue of, well, see. She's not saying to uncover him to the ankle. She's saying uncover him up to the waist. That's what this is really saying. And so in that, and then in sort of the idea here, I titled this one, What's Your View of Rating? If this were a movie, would this be a rated G, a PG, or an R? What rating would this thing get? Okay? And so, if you kind of see this scene in a movie today, right, and kind of went through this, right? Yes, the wings could refer to their prayer shawls. That certainly is a possibility. It's another interpretation of that. But still, what they're covering is a question there. So if you saw this scene in a movie, if you're watching a movie in a movie theater in America today, and you saw this, what's going to happen next? What's next on B? What would be in a modern movie? What's the next thing that's likely to happen? At least a kiss, I would argue. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, right. I mean, the way that is set up and the angle it's drawn at, even it's shortened the distance between them because of the angle that it's drawn at, so it's even closer. You'll follow my point. So it's an interesting aspect there. So there's some arguments over on the side of, well, hey, people are people. This is probably what happened. The idea of feet could mean something else. This idea of spread your shawl over me, she's making an advance on him in that regard. That's sort of that argument. The counter argument is, okay, hold on a minute, wait a minute. Is she making an advance? You better believe it. Spreading your wing over me, if you look at other Old Testament references, that is a marriage proposal. Okay, so I'm gonna paraphrase here. I mean, she basically says, "I'm Ruth, your servant. Why don't you marry me?" Okay, that is there are other references in the biblical context of spreading your wings over your servant, of meaning to go through. And I think Ezekiel has one of those to go, and you could go through and give references to that. And so, and in fact, when you look at his reaction in a moment, I think it's pretty clear to him. There's no doubt in his mind that she's proposing marriage. Okay, there's no, I mean, I feel pretty clear from the reading we're about to get to and go through that. So what is she proposing? Marriage. I don't think she's proposing that this evening that they're going to have relations. Yes, feet can mean, say in a male private area, but it doesn't have to. So this is the problem with a statement like that, a euphemism like that, is just because it means at one place doesn't mean it has to mean at every place. Okay? And so my interpretation of this is a really pretty G/PG kind of one. I don't think they did. And the most compelling part for it is the comments that Boaz is about to make about Ruth's character. We're about to focus on that the entire town knows of your character. The other thing is, all of these paintings show them very isolated and private and by themselves. Okay? Watch at the end. I'm going to highlight something that's, in my opinion, I don't think they're as private as these things imply that they are. I don't think they're as isolated here in this scene as they actually are right here. So we're going to work through that. So anyway, so I thought it would be interesting to go through and think through this. You'll have to decide for yourself. But if you talk about the book of Ruth with anybody out there in the world, it is possible that this concept will come up. And they'll say, oh, yeah, but you know what happened on the threshing floor. And you're going to have to decide for yourself what you think happened. And so forth. Are there improper relations in the Bible? Yeah, they're all over the place. That doesn't mean God condones them, but yeah, absolutely. So it's an important thing to do there, right? All right. Now they're out in the threshing shed. Well, the shed itself, it's an interesting statement. They typically have a roof over top, but they want the wind to blow through. You know what I'm saying? So they typically aren't going to have walls on it. You want it to have an open air kind of thing for the wind to blow through there, again, so that you can get when you throw it up in the air, that the breeze can blow it away. So it's an interesting idea there. All right. So I hope it's an interesting part. Now, why do I like G? Well, first of all, Boaz, the ages, but he's clearly older than her. So I like the imagery here of the white. That's also true in one of the earlier ones. I like the body positions. I like where she's there, even with her back to him and so forth. That's interesting. She's actually looks like the way that this artist had drawn it. It looks almost like she's actually physically laying on his feet. Like I'm like that would be painful. So maybe she was close to. I'm saying maybe they drew it a little too close to go forth and do it. But and I don't know if they would actually have a blue blanket like that. But keeping them warm, yeah, no, I understand. That's an interesting idea. So I don't know why each of you appeal to you now. That I do love the beauty and the tension that's back here in B. I like this, and I mean this is a poignant moment. This is a high tension moment. We're going to have one of these in Esther, by the way, where it's not relation one-on-one, but that one of these high tension moments where I mean like everything gets a make or break on this moment, if you will. And this is kind of like this for Ruth. This is a make or break moment in her life right now. One of the popular movies recently, there was a phrase, just breathe. Just breathe. You all know that one. And so, yeah, that's sort of there. It does look romantic. I agree with you. And it is a romantic story. And I love that in the Bible that there are some of these phenomenally romantic stories that are inside of here. All right. So, don't like these personally as much. These are a little bit too, I'm saying that this is getting past my PG rating. And whatever it's worth, if you go Google, there were pictures that I told Sheree, I cannot show these paintings on Sunday morning. I will not be showing these. So there were several that I threw out. Let me return back to the story. So Boaz's response, and he said, "May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter." And daughter, of course, here means a young woman. "You have made this last kindness greater than the first, and that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich." Her phrase to him, there's no doubt she's making some sort of advance, if you will. Okay? "And now, my daughter, do not fear, for I will do for all that you ask." Well, what is it that she's asking? And again, this is where she has de facto made a marriage proposal to him. Now, for those of us that are traditionalists, and the guy should ask the girl, this brings up some interesting comments on how this is all supposed to work. Was it okay for Ruth to do this or not? And I'm not going to tell you I know the answer because I don't. But it is an interesting question if you all follow my point. Was Ruth okay in doing what she did here? What if it was your daughter or granddaughter? How would you feel about that? Right? So you have to think about that in that context. All right. So now my daughter, do not fear. I will do all for you, all you ask. For all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman. And this is speaking to her character. And now it's true that I am a redeemer. I got a question last week. What does it take to be a redeemer? I did do some research on that, and it's still, I'm going to go with what I had last week, which is it is a male relative of means who is able, and it's basically the closest male relative who's able, and of means for what? Well, okay, so if you're actually purchasing back land that you have the money and you're able to do so, and there's some pieces, there is the related concept of being able to avenge, which is an interesting concept. And so be physically able then to actually avenge the unjust death of a member of your family. So now it is true that I am a redeemer, yet there is a redeemer nearer than I. Remain tonight, and in the morning, if he will redeem you, good, let him do it. That's an interesting statement. Okay, well, at least you'll be taken care of. But we're gonna follow the rules, and at least if he wants to do it, then he will. Although I will confess, he's a bit conniving in putting together his plan that he's going to try to work it in such a way that he gets Ruth. Okay, if he will redeem you, good, let him do it. But if he's not willing to redeem you, then as the Lord lives, I will redeem you. Lie down until the morning. And so she lay at his feet until the morning, but arose before one could recognize another. And he said, let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. Who's he speaking to? And he said, let it not be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. Who's Boaz talking to? She says, people around him. I mean, it's only a couple possibilities. He's either talking to himself or he's talking to Ruth, which makes no sense because he's, saying that doesn't make any sense at all. Or there have to be other people who are close by, at least at this hour of the morning, if you follow my point, right? I don't think they're quite as alone, if you follow my point, as maybe the images say that they were, if you follow what I'm trying to say that. So just that's my comment on that. is like, yeah, they weren't quite so isolated as the paintings I think make it out. That's my hunch. And he said, bring out the garment you're wearing and hold it out. So she held it, and he measured out 6 measures of barley, which is a lot, and put it on her. And then she went into his city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, how did you fare, my daughter? And then she told him all that the man had done for her, saying, these 6 measures of barley he gave to me, for he said to me, you must not go back empty-handed to your mother-in-law. She replied, wait, my daughter, until you learn how this matter turns out. For the man will not rest, but will settle the matter today. Naomi knows men. She's like, trust me, he's going to do something today. Just wait and sit and wait. Well, a couple quick small takeaways from that. And just as I was going through these, and I think it's actually the same takeaway written 2 different ways, so I apologize for that, but I have 2. Number 1, God has a plan for you. If you're listening to my voice today, if you stumbled across these sermons on Ruth because you're thinking about marriage, then I'm going to tell you God has a plan for you. And that may include marriage. And if so, all you have to do is wait on his timing. I had the pleasure of making a clock for Amy and Dion, and I thought for a long time, almost a year literally, on what I wanted to put on that. And so I put on there a small plaque. I put on, of course, their wedding date. And my comment was, his timing is perfect. So Amy and Dion, as you all had, throughout your lives, come to a point where God had brought you together, I really do think that his timing was perfect in your lives, and I celebrate that, and I praise God for that. This is true for the rest of you that are listening to me. If you are, and maybe a lot of folks here are married, and so you're like, hey, it doesn't apply to me. But I think it's important because those around us will be seeking advice. And it's one of the things that's very important to consider. As one of our former pastors used to say, if God wants you to get married, he's already picked out the person. Guys, if he's going to, you don't have to go seeking, trying desperately to find her. He's going to walk her in front of you. And guess what? If you miss it the first time, he's going to walk her by your nose again. And he's going to yank your head around and go, hey, look over there. Okay? So God bless the broken road. Amen. So God has a plan for you, and that may include marriage. This may apply for you whether you're not married yet, or perhaps if you're divorced and you're thinking about getting remarried. Okay? So if so, all you have to do is wait on his timing. Rushing things and trying to force it to happen on your own is not necessarily a good move. On the other hand, Ruth took steps in her hands as well, and I agree that. I think that she felt God was moving in her life, and she felt that the time was right, and I appreciate that. That's fine. But the point was she didn't go through the village trying to race and find every man. She didn't go racing into the fields desperate to try a man. It was in the midst of her doing other things, gleaning, when suddenly Boaz walked in front of her, if you follow my point. I think it's important to realize that's a good aspect for that. Number 2 is really just related to that in a broader sense. God's plans are always better than our plans. Let him put it together and watch what happens. And Sri says it was more of a business transaction, in my opinion, for Ruth's side. Yeah, sure. And we're going to talk about the inheritance piece there. But I think there's definitely some love involved as well. Yeah. Love comes eventually. All right. So, number 2, God's plans are always better than our plans. Let him put it together and watch what happens. And by put it together, I mean that God has a masterful way of orchestrating what we could never do. So that brings us to our question of the week. What is God putting together in your life? God's working. He's doing stuff, guys. He's out there putting pieces together. There may be pieces that are coming together in ways you've never imagined. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you have no idea what God's putting together. But I suspect some people listening to my voice today have some guesses that God is working somehow in this area. And while you can't see how it's going to finish, you know that somehow God is involved in that. Well, try to join him in that. Join where he is working. No offense. Try not to mess it up. Try not to mess it up by trying to force your own agenda on it, and try to see what it is that God is doing. So think about that this week. What is God putting together in your life? Let's go to Lord in prayer. Lord Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. Thank you for this great story of Ruth and Boaz. As we're getting ready, we're approaching Valentine's Day, as we think about the sweeties in our life, those that are out there that we love. Lord,
I would just ask that you grow in our heart an opportunity and a way to show them our love and to thank God for them. I just ask that you be with us in all the things beyond romance. You be with us in all the things that are happening in our lives. And Lord, the things that you are putting together that go so far beyond that, I just ask you help us to see your hand working and to see what would occur if we would let you have control. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen.